Thank you so much for being here. And of course, thank you sa ating speaker kahit very short notice. Welcome to the support webinar series for the researchers of the Open Contracting Procurement Analytics Research Initiative of Layertech Software Labs. Of course, this is supported by Hivos under their Open Up Contracting program. This webinar series, including the past support documentations that we rolled out, is specifically designed to help researchers analyze procurement data. So lahat ng all materials that we will be rolling out under this program is 100% free to use, to download with attribution, of course, but it's all 100% free, as long as it's related to procurement analytics and supported by Hivos. Now, one of the requests that we received and the comments that we've been getting from reviewers is to help researchers, hindi lang po itong mga grantees natin, but researchers in general, to better communicate their findings to stakeholders, especially to the non-technical stakeholders natin, di ba? Government, civil society, business sector, lahat, di ba? And that's exactly what we will be discussing now. So this is a very interesting and very relevant topic. So yon, konting rules and regulations lang muna. So first, please do mute your microphone when the speaker is presenting. However, the speaker will be asking questions from time to time. So please, you can use the microphone then. Number 2, you may ask questions at the end of the webinar. And then number 3, please do not click present kasi pag may nag-click ng present, nawawala yung presentation ng speaker. And then finally, this is recorded and this will be uploaded in our social media pages. So without further ado, yun lang para wala ng ano. Please let me introduce our speaker. So our speaker is Ms. Jo Briones. She handles information, communications, PR, and project management duties for DOST, ASTI's, DA, how would you say, Datos ba? Project.
Yes, it's a data project.
Okay, so Datos project. So besides having worked extensively in disaster research and building a career in science communication, she also writes and produces tech review videos and occasionally dresses up as strong female characters from pop culture at comic conventions. I just have to say this. Pareho tayo. So, yeah, marami actually from the researchers from the team. Her work has been published in the International Journal of Disaster Risk Reduction and the Natural Hazards and Earth System Sciences. She has also written for Asian Scientist Magazine, GMA News Online, and the Bean Pro TV channel. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself and over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Frey. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jo. I was introduced a while ago in a rather, much cooler than I actually am. But yes, I have been working for DOST ASTI, the Advanced Science and Technology Institute, and for the project that I am in, the Datos project. I might be able to explain it a little bit later if it's relevant sa ating webinar. I've been working as an information officer for them for the past 2 years already. And then before that, I was with DOST Project NOAA, the Operational Assessment, Nationwide Operational Assessment of Hazards. Yeah, so a lot of my communication work has been around science and technology, particularly explaining science and technology to stakeholders, potential clients, funders. That's very important because as researchers, we all know that we really do need funding. So this webinar, this is kind of weird because I don't feel like there's somebody at the other end of this. I would actually prefer kung okay lang sa inyo na hindi kayo mag-mute. Is that okay? Or masyado pa yung maingay, Ms. Frey? Ms. Frey, hello?
Sa participants, kayo ba? Kasi minsan may ambient noises eh. So
Mm.
if it doesn't bother you, feel free lang kung ano yung what you think is most effective for this webinar.
Okay, sige. So, I'll try to feel comfortable with the silence na lang. I-assume ko na lang that I am a streamer, kunwari, ng Mobile Legends or something. I'm talking to a camera. Okay, so basically, this presentation that I'm going to give is basically a crash course on how to communicate science effectively. So I'm under the impression that the participants are all in the scientific field. Tama po ba? And well, it's science communication. It's probably a nascent. Hello, good afternoon, Miss Lani Maseda. Hi. Yeah, tama. So the participants are all in the scientific community, and I am it's it's a nascent field, science communication, especially in the Philippines. Kasi we have communicators. We have subjects, we have courses dedicated to comms, but there aren't really that many programs or degree programs even for science communication per se. I think a lot of the things that I will be saying here are things that we have learned already sa mga undergrad subjects natin, mga Tom 1 communication courses natin. So, pang-reiterate lang talaga siya ng mga kung ano ang alam natin and then contextualizing them into things that we would be remembering within the next few months. Kasi, as Ms. Ray has told me, you guys will be presenting, tama ba, Ms. Ray? You will be presenting about your research.
Yes, they will be presenting sa stakeholders.
The stakeholders. Okay. And you will also be writing a feature article about your research. So these will be tips on how to do that more effectively. So according to the chief scientific advisor sa United Kingdom, who was recently as well the research and innovation chief executive, science isn't finished until it's communicated. Para saan yung research nyo, para saan yung science nyo, if you're not able to show it to somebody who is going to use it or at least appreciate it in some way. Uh, would it be all right if I go around the room and ask kung ano na yung experience ng bawat participant on science communication? Like, have they written in publications, mga academic journals? Have they published a book? Have they done poster presentations, conference readings? May social media presence ba sila? Have you done interviews? Have you done press releases? I will pick a random, a random participant kung walang mag-volunteer. Miss Jennifer, are you a participant or are you part of the organizing committee?
Hello, good afternoon, Ms.
Yes,
Jo.
hello, good afternoon. Hi,
Yes,
ma'am.
just recently, I have already some experiences in terms of presentation, paper presentations for
Okay.
my paper, for my dissertation.
Okay, that's good.
And
Good.
yeah, I have also some researches published also as well.
That's good. Okay. Any aside from the scientific writing, have you done anything? Kunwari sa Facebook, may nagtanong tungkol sa research ninyo. Pinosent mo, pinost mo ba siya ever?
Not really po.
Okay. Thank you for that. Sir John Raymond Barajas. Thank you, Miss Jennifer. Sir John Raymond po. Sir, hello, sir. Hindi yata. Hindi sir. Naka-unmute po sila pero may buzzing sound lang po ako naririnig. It's okay if hindi po gumagana na maayos yung microphone nila, you could type it out. Siguro an example lang of recent science communication work that you have done. And while you're typing, si Miss Lani Maseda, Can I ask for a recent example of science communication work?
Hi, Miss Jo. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. I actually had publications on journals and also even on digital libraries.
Okay, interesting.
And I also had research with a DNR funded one. I think it's 3 years ago. And some of my publications is actually a product of our partnership with other universities.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay.
And it's
Okay.
actually available on Scopus Index. Thank you, Miss
Ah,
Jo.
thank you very much po for sharing. Maybe later I'll be asking each and every one the specifics of their research na, and in context of the webinar. How
Thank you.
about Mr. Arpon Lucero? Tama po ba? Arpon Lucero Jr.? Yes.
Hello. Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Hello. Hello, Ma'am Jo.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Um, I have also experience in publishing journals, but not in data analytics and
I
data.
see.
So I also have experience presenting in international conferences when I was studying in Korea. Yeah, so siguro mga three presentations ako doon.
Ah, so in
Yes,
front of an international audience po, no?
yes, ma'am.
And then that means you've also seen them how they present on stage ng research
Yes,
nila.
yes.
So I I just like to share na during international conferences, napansin ko that each country actually has their own specific way of presenting their research, and I've found that the Japanese, when they present, they have a template for their tables and graphs, and everything, all of the tables and graphs and charts are actually on their slide. So medyo nakakalula siya tignan. So we'll actually be discussing that later.
The English
Um,
ma'am has so much wisdom.
Tama diba?
Yeah.
Thank you, Sir Lucero, Sir Arpon Lucero. And Mr. PJ. Sorry, I can't pronounce your last name.
Yes, ma'am. Yes po.
Hi. Can you share with us your experience in science communication?
Actually, ma'am, I am just new sa area na to. Since last year lang ako nag-start.
Mm-hmm.
Mentee ako ni Sir Barajas. But I had some experiences po in presenting papers since last year po.
I see. Okay. Ayan, so si Sir Barajas hindi siya nakapag-share ng kanyang ano. I-type nyo na lang po, sir, kung meron po kayong the most recent experiences that you've had. Sir Barajas, are you there? Pa-type na lang po ng ano, ng audience participation po nila. Ay, mukhang may kakaproblema si Sir Raymond. I'll read his answer later. But based on your responses, everyone has had experience in communicating their science, and that is good. That should be the case for all researchers. Na even if you're not the one personally presenting your research, you might be part of a team that has communicators na nagpo-present ng research nila. Hindi lang in journal publications, not just in international conferences, but even in meetings, even in pitches, even in, normal coffee shop conversations with people who aren't necessarily researchers or in your field of expertise. So sabi ni Sir Barajas, same po with Ma'am Lani and Ma'am Yovido. So yeah, and that's good na itong research na ginagawa ninyo, you're able to communicate it. You're able to share it with others. Kasi nga, there's really no point in doing research if you're going to keep it to yourself. So, the, sorry, and some of the things that I'll be showing you in the next few slides are models, well, communication theory models that are sort of a refresher for us. And then the first one is one of the cornerstones of effective communication. And it's basically one of the first things that we learn in language or English classes in grade school. And that's the 5W1H model. It's very simple. It's just the what, the who, the when, the where, the why, and the how. So the 5W1H, it's used in journalism. It's also used in Six Sigma. May mga taga-industrial engineering po ba, or operations research sa atin, mga engineers. Ay, medyo mahirap kumuha ng feedback from the audience. Normally, kasi if this was a classroom setting, it would be easier to see if you're nodding with me in agreement. But again, this model is one of the cornerstones of effective communication. And sometimes it's called the Kipling method, from Rudyard Kipling, because he had a poem written about the 6 honest serving men, and their names were what and why and when and how and where and who. So these are the questions that you have to ask as a science communicator in order for you to know what you're supposed to be communicating and the method of your communication. So the first question that you have to ask is what? Ibig sabihin lang nito, this is the content of the message or the message that the sender spreads. So for your research, you have to know, what is the research? What happened in your research? What were the methods that you used in researching? What were the processes involved? And what are the results? And aside from that, you look at it in a communication aspect. So you have to ask the question, what is it about and what is the message? Importante na alam nyo kung ano yung gusto nyong iparating sa audience nyo. And that's the next question, who? Who pertains to the audience, but also it pertains to who did the research. You have to introduce kung sino kayo, who funded this research, especially if it's very important na, let's say, Hivos or other, funding organizations like probably World Bank or the Department of Science and Technology. If it's important to state, it's something that you have to communicate. And also on the communication side of things, you need to say who the message is from and who the message is for. Know your audience. Know who your stakeholders are. So, ano ba? This defines kung sino yung communicator, and this defines kung sino din yung mga nasa gitna, nasa intermediary, and kung sino yung pagsasabihan nyo ng message nila. Also, you have to consider who is affected by your research. Kasi it doesn't have to be a direct effect, pero sino ba, ano yung ripple effect? Sino yung maapektuhan ng ginawa nila? Or kung sino yung makakagawa ng something, or who needs to take action in order for that research to become something more structured or something more tangible. May questions po ba tayo so far? Okay, and it's rather difficult to answer a yes or no. Thank you, Miss Lani and Miss Jennifer. Binabantayan ko din po yung chat because I think it's easier for you guys to ask questions there. Okay, the next question. Oh yeah, who will be supporting your ideas? Hindi lang yung mga people involved in making the research or communicating the research. Also, who else is going to help you with not just communicating it, but also the research itself? The next question is when. You have to be able to communicate when did the research take place, like when did it start? Because sometimes it matters kapag you did a certain type of research during, let's say, it's relevant to a pandemic. Mabuti kung na-start mo yung research mo, parang mabuting ipaalam kung na-start mo siya before the pandemic happened or during the pandemic, because sometimes results vary depending on when it started, and results also vary when it finished. Also, on the communication aspect, you have to figure out when your message is going to be delivered. Is it going to be in the middle of the pandemic crisis? Is it going to be after? Is it going to be at an event where there are people who are ano ba, decision makers that can do something with your research. When is the action needed? If you want something done about your research, you have to be able to figure out when it's going to be actionable. The next question is where. You have to be able to state when your research took place, when it started, and where it started and where it finished. On the communication aspect, where is the message going to be delivered? Ano yung avenue mo? Where is it going to be applied? Kasi sometimes there are, di ba, may mga research na on a national scale, and there's also research that is more local. Like for example, I think you guys are from, tama po ba? From Region 5 po silang lahat. It's free. Yes. Yes.
Yes
Okay.
po. It's Unit 5.
So, may mga specific research needs na magkaiba from Region 5 to, let's say, Region 4B or Region 5 to, the entirety of the Philippines. You also need to know where it's going to be applied kasi language also matters. It is always easier for you to, to be able to communicate something kung alam mo kung ano yung lengguwahe na ginagamit ng mga tao. Not just the actual language itself, but, the nuances. For example, university students from Bicol or regular na mga citizens of, a specific barangay in Bicol. The next question is why? Why now? Why did you do the research now? Why is this research needed? Why did we do this? And then on the communication side of things, why are you communicating this? So, may, ano ba? May purpose ba kung bakit mo gustong malaman ng tao kung ano yung research nyo? And then the last, dito sa model na to, is the how, the singular H. You're supposed to be able to show how you did the research. How is it going to help the stakeholders that we have identified a while ago? It's a who question. And then on the communication side, how are you going to communicate this? Are you going to do it in a forum where you'll be able to speak in a technical manner? How are you going to convince a tough crowd? Like for example, it's a kind of research na hindi siya madaling intindihin kasi hindi sila parte ng field of expertise na yun. So it might be difficult to make them understand the importance of these things. So how are you need to figure out how to convince them to understand what your message is. And then, yung isang question na hindi kasama dito sa 5W1H, and I think this is a very important question that every communicator or even every researcher needs to realize. So what? Ano ngayon? What's in it for you? What's in it for them, the audience? So these are the questions na alam kong it's very fundamental, but it's also really good to go back to the basics as sort of a foundation of how to do research effectively and how to communicate your research effectively. So do we have any questions so far? There being none. That's good. Na medyo wala tayong questions, pero I'd love to hear some feedback sa inyo later. Siguro pag nandun na tayo sa part where I'll be showing you some tips on how to communicate better. Let's move on to another guide to communication, which is the Laswell model. So basically, you need to understand number one, who the communicator is. Number two, what the message is. Number three, what is your medium? Number four, who is your receiver? And number five, what the effect is. So basically, who says what in what channel, to whom, and for what goal. And so, kagaya ng 5W1H model, this is one of the very basic tenets of communication. And then we also have the 7 C's of communication. So first, how you communicate, it needs to be concise. Ibig sabihin, it shouldn't be wordy. You have to use the least possible words, and you have to be efficient in communicating. Because you have to respect the time of your audience, and you have to respect your time as well. Because this isn't the only thing that you're going to be doing naman eh. So yeah, number one, first C is concise. The second is you should be clear. So clarity implies emphasizing on a specific message or goal at a time rather than trying to achieve a lot of things at once. So you have to be clear in order for your audience to make it understandable, to make understanding easier, and to enhance the meaning of your message. The third C is correct. So correctness in communication implies that there should be, you know, avoid grammatical errors in communication because it needs to be exact, it needs to be correct, and it needs to be well timed. Aside from that, you have to be able to present to your audience your correct analysis and your correct data. Alam natin na very important ang accuracy in data sa results. So it's also important to be able to communicate this accurately to your audience. Ayan. Next is concreteness. So concrete communication implies being particular and clear rather than fuzzy and general. It's better to show concrete ideas rather than abstract ones because hindi pare-parehas ang level of understanding ng bawat isa sa mga abstract mga ideas. What you communicate needs to be supported by facts and specific figures, and you need to be able to, the message needs to be interpreted correctly, which is why it needs to be concrete. Number 5 is completeness. So it should convey all the facts needed by the audience. Pwede kang mambitin, pero it would be better if, for that specific purpose, nailahad nyo lahat ng kailangang ilahad sa audience ninyo. It also enhances kasi the reputation of the communicator and the organization they represent. And if no crucial information is missing, you cut down on costs kasi hindi mo na kailangan balikan yung audience mo to update them on something else na nakalimutan mong sabihin. So it means na when you communicate with completeness, there isn't any more doubt in the audience's mind. It also is able to persuade the audience into doing something, doing an action from the message that you communicated with them. Next is courtesy. So you have to be courteous when you communicate. You have to be considerate with not just the feelings of the person you're communicating to, but also their viewpoints. And it should be a positive thing. Kasi mahirap maging, for lack of a better word, pangit maging bastos kapag nagko-communicate ka. Mas receptive ang tao if you are respectful of their ideas and their feelings, and hindi biased yung sinasabi nila sa audience nila. So, going back, it's just respect. Respect for you and respect for the audience. And the last C is coherence. So when you communicate something that's coherent, it is logical. And as we know, as researchers, mas naiintindihan ang mga bagay-bagay na logical. So all points should be connected to each other. You have a main topic and then you have subtopics na magkaka-interrelate sa isa't isa. Relevant and interoperable. And the tone should be consistent. So awareness of these 7 C's of communication makes you an effective communicator. And I understand that these are things that, I know that everybody knows these, but it's good to revisit these fundamentals in order to be able to express and relay information better. Ayan. Do we have questions so far? Because the next part would actually be tips on effective communication. I'd be happy to hear some questions from our audience. Okay, none so far. All right, so the next part is tips on how to communicate more effectively from different points of views. So, um, ang output ninyo after this webinar would be a speech or a presentation to stakeholders and a feature article pertaining to your research. So, yung apat na points of view that I chose to show here are number one, from the point of view of a public speaker, from a public speaking point of view. Number two is from a data science point of view. Number three is from the point of view of visual communication. And number three is from the point of view of feature writing. Sino sa inyo ang meron ng experience from public speaking aside from yung mga na-mention kanina na international conferences and poster presentations? Meron po ba? It's okay to unmute kung ano, kung if you want to answer the questions that I'm extempo ng college. Yes, sa comm classes, I believe. What else? What avenues have you been able? Yeah, a speaker on a conference. What else? Meetings. Mga meetings with stakeholders. That's actually a public speaking venture, not as public as being on stage. It's just different because most of the time you're sitting or in front of a projector, but it's essentially the same. So I think everybody has had experience in public speaking, mostly in class, mostly for work. And I think public speaking, if I remember correctly from one of the books that I've read before, it's one of the biggest fears that everybody has. I think it's just second to fear of spiders or fear of dying. These are these hinuhugot ko lang tong statistics from the air. Pero a lot of people are actually very scared of speaking in public. And I actually think that's a very comforting thing kasi at least, magkasangga tayong lahat na it's not something that we want to do, but it's something that we have to do, especially for work and especially as a researcher. So here are some tips from a public speaking point of view. Some of these I have learned through the years. Some of these I actually read from mga Toastmasters na mga libro. Some of these are from school. So the first step that I want to leave you guys is you do not assume that the people you're talking to already know what your research is about. May tendency kasi tayo sometimes na, especially for conferences, na you would state all the facts, state the jargon, state the words that your particular field of study uses, without realizing that that can be a very specific word for a specific field. So I've worked with scientists before from different fields, and I've realized that even among the different disciplines, minsan hindi nagkakaintindihan ng mga scientists and researchers. So you don't assume that people know agad kung ano yung pinagsasabi ninyo because it might breed misinformation and miscommunication later down the line. But also, you don't assume that your audience knows nothing. You have to remember that your audience is smart. They are listening to you because they actually want to know more about the topic, and that is actually a smart thing already. That's proof that your audience is smart. Your stakeholders are smart. Your funders are smart. The people on your Facebook account, kahit na sometimes we disagree with the stuff they say, they're actually smart. It's not good to assume that they don't know anything. One of the ways to go around it is to remember that you know something that a smarter audience doesn't. So that's one good way of trying to frame your mind that, okay, I want to share this thing that I know to a smart audience. Don't ever dumb your audience down and don't assume that they're dumb. Again, the next step is KISS. KISS. Keep it short and simple. Another thing, and another this meaning for that sometimes is keep it short and scintillating. Excite your audience, but make it brief. A more, ano ba, a harsher way of saying it is keep it simple, stupid. Sometimes you have to say that to remind yourself na parang, ah, iksayan mo, diba? And then, meron kasing, there's a less politically correct quote I read as a child. It's attributed to Winston Churchill that a good speech should be like a woman's skirt. It's long enough to cover the subject and short enough to create interest. So the point is generally just to not ramble on to keep your audience interested. This isn't just for public speaking. This is for everything, for your papers, for anything that catches your audience's interest. Kung gumagawa kayo ng video, keep it short and simple. So the next tip is to use the right words for the right context. I understand that in science, engineering, in the STEM field, that some words mean a certain thing that don't necessarily translate into layman's terms. But then, pwede mo siyang merge together with a more laymanized, a laymanized context. And sometimes there are words na mas specific siya to mean a certain thing. For example, the word scary. It is synonymous to the word creepy, but you could use the word creepy to refer to something na, those creepy crawlies, yung mga spiders are kind of creepy. Scary is a more general term. It's also synonymous to spooky, but you use spooky to refer to, let's say, ghosts or specters. So remember that you can use a specific word for the right context because number one, it means exactly what you mean, and number two, it's efficient. You don't have to use many adjectives to state your opinion. Okay. Next, remember to breathe and remember to pause. Sometimes pausing actually gives more impact than speaking. So when you try to emphasize a point, pauses are very important. And breathing is also very important because it's the foundation of speaking. So one of the ways that you could improve your breathing is to actually meditate or to do yoga. Mm, when you breathe, when you speak, make sure not to raise your shoulders, but instead fill your lungs or fill your belly with air. So when you inhale, usually it's from the nose, and then you breathe in. Make sure that hindi tumataas yung shoulders nila because that's useless movement. And when you exhale, you do it while you're speaking. Yeah, breathing is very important. Not only is it effective in making you sound more credible and confident, but also it helps you calm down and be more efficient with work. Next, you keep one or two butterflies in your stomach. So the phrase butterflies in the stomach means kaba. Everybody usually has butterflies in their stomach when they talk in front of an audience. Ang goal natin is to eliminate as many butterflies as possible. However, you need to keep one or two of them in your tummy because if you don't, magiging masyado kang aggressive or mayabang and then you don't remember anymore some of the words that you say, and then sometimes you could go on the more aggressive side and be a little bit insulting. So it pays to keep yourself grounded. Mag-retain ka ng konting kaba kasi 'di ba sabi nila 'di ba pag uminom ka naman ng kape masyado kang para kabahan ka naman ng konti kapag masyado ng gung-ho. Then keep one or two butterflies in your stomach. The next tip that I'm going to share is remember that you are the main visual aid. So as the speaker, you should be the main focus of your speech. Don't rely on your slides. Don't read your slides. Remember that as a speaker, you should be able to control and direct where the audience's eyes and ears should go. So I'm sure, are some of you teachers as well in university? Yes? Yes. So I'm sure a lot of you have had experiences. That's actually public speaking experience as well. I am sure that some of you have also heard, feedback from students, not necessarily pertaining to your teaching style, but some students would complain na nakakatamad pumasok dito sa class kasi binabasa niya lang naman yung slides. That's a practice that professors and public speakers should do away with. Don't depend on your slides. Don't use it as a crutch. Your slides are supporting visual aids, and you should still be the main focus of your speech with the message. You are the conduit of the message. Syempre, ang pinakabida pa rin is the message itself, or what you're trying to teach, what you're trying to communicate. So, ayan. Also, I think you've had, since you all are taking up higher education, I think you've had professors or are having professors na medyo ganyan din, dependent sa acetate, dependent sa PowerPoint. Having that's a practice that we should do away with. You are the main visual aid. Next, give a memorable introduction and an impactful conclusion. So, ang sabi nila kasi, first impressions last. And if you're not able to catch their attention sa simula pa lang ng speech ninyo, there is a chance that they're going to trail off in the middle. And there is a chance that they're going to dismiss you. The conclusion should also leave them either wanting for more or make them remember, everything that you said. So give an impactful conclusion. Of course, practice. So may nag-mention kanina na extemporaneous speaking ng college, yung isang example of public speaking. Actually, the more spontaneous or the more extemporaneous your speeches are, the more practice you have to have. Sa case namin sa research group namin, we have information officers and a technical team. Before we actually present something, we have a meeting and we run through the slides. When we run through those slides, not only do we see kung ano yung mga inconsistencies sa messaging namin, nakikita namin kung ano yung gusto naming kwento, ano yung mas maayos na paglahad ng kwento. And at the same time, we're able to practice how we tell the story. So well, they say practice means perfect, but I think practice means preparedness. May misconception yung mga tao that when they're speaking, they need to memorize everything that they wrote down. I don't think that's a good practice, because if you have a prepared speech and all you did was memorize word for word, in the event that you're in front of your audience and you miss out on even a single word, it throws you off the balance. Instead of memorizing, you have to master your message, you have to master your speech. And in order to do that, you practice. So, can I ask the audience, how do you guys practice for your speeches? Pwede ko po ba kayang isa-isahin ulit? Hihiya ulit. Miss Jovido? Kayo po, ma'am, how do you practice your speeches?
I usually go through the material first and prepare a guide. So basically keywords, probably I try to say it out loud.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good practice. Kasi when you say things out loud, when you practice it out loud, you're able to hear yourself. You're able to catch when you make a mistake, or you're able to catch yung mga difficult words na you stumble upon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good practice from Miss Jennifer. How about Si Sir Barajas, I'd just request for you to type your answer na lang, no? Kasi hindi po yata gumagana yung mic nila. Si Miss Lani po.
Hi, Miss Jo.
Yes, ma'am.
Usually, for instance, like paper presentations, since there's only an allowed number of minutes, like 10 minutes,
Yes.
I normally prepare like 20-25 slides because I set for like a minute, 2 slides, just for
Mm.
the points of my presentation. And I practiced it. As in, actual, pinapractice ko siya prior ang presentation.
Ayun, na-mention na Miss Lani na tina-time niya yung sarili niya and she knows well, hindi na exact, but she knows kung how many number of slides are needed for a specific time frame. So I think she is able to do that because she has had practice already. Alam na niya na, this number of slides is equal to the 20 minutes presentation. And that's good. The more you do that, the more you are able to identify kung gaano ka katagal magsalita or gaano ka kabilis. The easier it is for you to apply it to future presentations. Thank you, Miss Lani.
Thank
Sister,
you.
Sister, ano po? Hindi ko nakikita niyo. Sorry. Sister Arpon Lucero Jr. Hello, sir.
Hi, hello, ma'am.
Yes po.
Same with Ma'am Jennifer, ma'am. I usually make a guide of the presentation. And then, pinapractice ko yung flow, yung arrangement ng presentation. And then I usually practice in front of the mirror.
Do you practice it in front of an audience?
In front of the mirror, madam.
In front of the mirror. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, conscious po ba kayo? Ako personally, ayoko nakikita yung sarili ko. Pero for some people, it actually works. So, ayan, si Sir Arpon practices in front of a mirror. That's good because with that, you also catch yung mga nervous tics nila, na visual. Nakikita mo rin kung minsan di mo alam that you're gesticulating too wildly. Oh, masyadong awkward pala yung kamay ko. Ganun. So, that's good practice. Si Sir PJ po. Thank you, Sir Arpon. Sir PJ. Na mute niyo po ulit yung sarili niyo, Sir PJ. Mukhang na-mute na Sir PJ yung ano niya, yung microphone ulit. So, Sir Nico, hindi po yata kayo nagsalita kanina. I'm not
Hi.
sure.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Hi.
Yes po. Yeah, almost same din naman. I usually have a whiteboard and I usually talk to myself.
How you talk to yourself? Okay.
Yeah.
Ayun, talking to yourself, it kind of sounds weird, but it actually works.
Actually,
May I ask if all of you are more comfortable in presenting in English, or do you prefer, with your local languages? Anyone can answer. Anyone just unmute themselves. Ay, nawalan ng connection si Sir PJ. Yeah. Right, so with regards to the languages that are being used in presenting, actually one tip that I can share is if you're more comfortable in speaking in English versus the vernacular or your local language, that's fine. But if you're more comfortable with your local language, that's also fine. That's nothing to worry about, even if you're going to be presenting in international conferences, because when you're speaking in public, it's a persona that you are putting on. You don't have to be really good at a foreign language or at a local language, as long as you're able to practice yourself. And when you practice, that is also when you identify your filler words or your crutch words or your filler actions. Like, for example, me, I have noticed that when I pause, um, I say that's not good practice, but it's something that you can catch yourself when you record yourself or when you look at yourself in the mirror when you practice. So it's something that you could eliminate. Some people say ano, some people revert to their local language when they're trying to explain something. For example, okay, according to yung parang ganitong klaseng bagay, that's not bad as long as the audience understands you completely pa rin. So, the filler words, they're indicators lang siguro of maybe nervousness or whatever, but they don't necessarily have to be like eliminated completely. But if it's something that you want to remove, obviously you just need to practice um, in removing those. So please feel free to comment on everything that am saying right now because I really want to hear from you guys, especially pertaining to your experience. Last tip from a public speaking point of view: improvise, adapt, overcome, according to Bear Grylls. Because even if you practice and even if you prepare, something might still happen, something that you don't expect. So the more you practice, the more you're able to come up with multiple scenarios of things that might go wrong or might not go according to plan. A public speaker should be able to improvise what they're going to say in case their PowerPoint presentation doesn't show. A public speaker must adapt to an audience. For example, if you tell a joke and it falls flat, you should be able to think on your feet, adapt immediately in order to save the flow of the conversation and overcome. It's okay to make mistakes as long as you're able to um, get up back again. And that's everything from a public speaking point of view. Let's move on sa data science naman. So data science, everybody is talking about data science right now. Some people are saying that it's just statistics with fancier clothing. I would say that data science is presenting your information in a more efficient way, especially if it's results from a research. So yung first tip that I would state dito sa data science point of view, use your data to tell a story. When you communicate, it's all about telling a story. Kanina, we talked about who you're telling the story to, what the story is, how you're going to tell the story. In this case, data science is your tool. It's your how to tell a story. You have to remember that, sorry, you have to remember that when telling a story, whenever you're required to present data, you should be asking yourself, okay, I have all of this data. What story is this data going to tell? And then the next question is, how do I tell this story in the best way possible? So ayan, I believe that data scientists are storytellers, and their stories come from the data that they generate from their studies. Number two, presentation matters. It's not about making things pretty. When it comes to presenting data clearly, it should be informative rather than beautiful. You could have the nicest colored graphs, but if it doesn't say anything, if it's not telling a story and it's not presenting any results that are meaningful, it's useless. Again, presentation matters. Next, don't scare people with numbers. Alam natin that we are in the age of big data. Nasa Industry 4.0 tayo, and we're generating data at a breakneck pace. And examples of this siguro is just the amount of posts that people do on social media, Twitter, Facebook. That is big data. Marami kang makukuha na information from that. Satellite images from various satellite image providers. Our research group actually deals with a lot of this satellite imagery. Big data siya because this is generated maybe every day or maybe every week, every other week, and these are not just the size of the data, not just large files, pero Big data kasi is data that you can extract more data and more information from. So we have a lot of data. That means we have a lot of numbers. And as researchers, we have a tendency to present all of the numbers that we have. So what we can do is to not scare the people with the numbers, but to present it in a way, to crunch it in a way that is more efficient. Next, mind your axes. So, diba, if you have your graphs, you have your x and y axis. Don't always remember yung mga fundamentals ng graph making. Your axes should be labeled correctly. They should be presenting things properly. Yung gaps between the numbers that can change the telling of the story. Later, I will be showing you examples of bad graphs, bad data science visualizations, and examples of some things that you could follow. Next, avoid 3D unless it tells a better story. Graphs in themselves, kapag masyado na silang cluttered, kapag masyadong ng maraming graphs, nakakalito na siya tignan. Kapag dinagdagan mo pa siya ng 3D, mas nakakalito siya tignan. Later, I actually have an example of that. It's, yeah, I'll show it to you after. Next, use the appropriate charts. So, if it's a time series, if it's a temporal distribution of something, obviously you show it in a temporal way, probably a line graph. If it's a comparison of values, it could be a bar graph. Pie charts are actually discouraged because apparently people's perception on ratios and proportions are not universal. Nakakalito ang pie charts in general, unless you want to show, majority of something and you don't really care about the accuracy of what your pie represents. So friends don't let friends use pie charts. You use color with intention. So you never rely on the color itself, but you use it with intention. You use it to show contrast, you use it to show similarities. Um, and just because it looks good, it doesn't mean that you should use that color. Maximize the visualization tools and software. Even Excel has visualization tools that you could use to visualize your data. You also have mga open source, mga Python-based na open source na mga visualization tools. You could also download these things online. So it's good to look at trends, actually. You search for these tools and software, maximize these, and last but not least, don't limit yourselves to tabular or graphical representations. Most of the time, data science is represented by numbers, graphs, tables. Sometimes it's good to think spatially. So maybe a heat map or maps in general. Kasi hindi lang naman X and Y and Z yung representation ng data. You could also view it in a spatial or even a geospatial lens. Spatial kasi confusing daw yung spatial sa special. So, sa context ng Filipino, spatial means yung sinasabi na word. Okay, so I'll be showing samples of graphs and charts and visualizations, and I'd like the audience to point out what they think is wrong with these graphs. So first, can anybody tell me what is being presented here and how they think this is an example of bad visualization? Does anybody want to comment? Sino pong do I point out? Miss Lani. Hello?
Hello, Miss Jo. Sorry, hindi ko masyado po naintindihan yung tanong.
Okay. I'm showing a graph, a visualization of something. Can you tell me why do you think this is an example of bad visualization?
Mhm. It actually shows a different attributes. You will notice iba-ibang tao siya.
Mhm.
So if sa on data analytics, iba-iba ang attributes niya, but however, pinakita kasi siya from progressing siya from galing siya sa pwede naman na increasing or decreasing ang
Mhm.
trend niya, pero iba-iba ang pinanggalingan niya.
I see. Okay. Visually, how do you think it's confusing? What is confusing with this, with this chart?
Normally kasi within the chart, if we have attributes, we usually correlate it with each one.
Mhm.
And then tinitignan natin yung significance sa bawat isa.
So yeah, it is, the attributes don't make sense. Medyo cluttered siya. I mean, they're trying to show um, clothes of people supposedly from the Netherlands, USA, Canada, England, India, and the Philippines. But
Mhm.
these, it's quite unnecessary. But the one thing that I actually noticed na very glaring is the scale.
Mhm.
Kung mapapansin nila, the one on the left, the height, the average male height of men from the Netherlands, it shows that it's in between 1.8 to 1.85 meters.
Mhm.
I-compare mo siya dun sa pinakamaliit, which is the guy from the Philippines, roughly a little bit over 1.6 meters.
Mhm.
Visually pa lang, alam natin na hindi naman ganun kalaki yung difference dapat ng isang guy that's 1.8 meters tall with a guy that's 1.6 meters tall. So yun, the scale is askew. It is very off and hindi nare-represent ng intervals ng y-axis yung scale
Mhm.
properly.
Okay, Miss Jo. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Miss Lani. So, yun, the axes are, the x-axis is okay. The y-axis is a little bit problematic because for one, it also started with 1.5. It's not a zero. So when it comes to height, diba, parang ang ang weird naman that your zero height is 1.5 meters. So yeah, aside from scale, the axis was misrepresented. So that's something that we need to that's something that we need to keep in mind when we're making visualizations of data. This is a bad example of data visualization. All right, next example. Can anybody tell me why this is bad? Can somebody describe it in one word? Mr. PJ.
Chaos.
Right, do you see
Very
the
chaotic, madam.
Yes, it's very chaotic. It is very cluttered, and the use of 3D in
Mm.
this example, it's it's useless. So, okay, gumamit ka ng 3D, sabihin na lang natin na tama yung paggamit ng 3D. But then, as you said, it is very chaotic. Hindi na siya naiintindihan ng viewer pa lang. So, a good visualization of data, a good graph, a good chart should be simple enough that isang tingin pa lang, you have an idea of what's going on. When we look at this chart, okay, it has pretty colors, yes, but I have no idea what's going on. I don't even know what it means. I think it's temperature to another axis. Anyway, it's very confusing. It's very chaotic. That's correct. Next example. So why do you think this is bad visualization? Sir ano? Sir Arpon.
Um, Hello.
Hi.
I think um, I'm not really sure, but for me, it has too many colors,
Yes, that
and
is correct.
um, masyadong maliliit yung partition
Mhm.
of the,
Correct.
yeah, that's
Tama.
what
The,
sorry.
the pie chart does have a lot of elements going on. Tapos masyado nang maliit na basically insignificant na yung differences ng each segment, each partition. But actually, correct, tama, tama. Very, very, very astute observation. Actually, if you look at on the right side to see what each color actually means, each of them just means the same thing. So, yung pinakamalaking portion dito sa pie chart na to, the blue one, Zelda. Then the other one is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wind. And then somebody else answered Breath of the Wind. Somebody else answered BOTW. So parang this was a survey of 3,994 people or more even. But they answered siguro sa survey na yon na nag-type out sila. So, syempre, maybe this is indicative of a bad survey questionnaire. Aside from that, tama yung sinabi na Sher na very, masyadong maraming nangyayari on screen. So, yan, when we're gathering data, we also have to consider na the people we're asking data from, we're extracting data from, or the people that we're sending out our survey forms and questionnaires, we should be able to design these in a way na hindi sila malilito and at the same time, it's going to give us robust and clean na data. Kasi sa data science, analytics, cleansing the data is the most difficult part and the most mabusisi, pinakamatrabaho na bahagi ng data science. So, yeah, this is an example of not so good data visualization. I would dare say it's bad visualization and bad data gathering. Okay, next example. This is the last example of bad visualization. Sir Nico, would you care to analyze this chart in front of us? Hello, sir. Sir Nico? Okay, medyo I think Sir Nico is having difficulty with his microphone. Si Sir PJ po. Nawala si Sir Nico. Sir PJ, do you see what's on the screen? And can you tell me why do you think this is?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Kasi yung distribution nung pie is that 8 hours, 16 hours. However, yung number niya, 16 hours mas maliit siya eh. Yung slice niya mas maliit compared sa 8 hours. Yeah.
So mislabeled siya. They tried to be creative with it. They tried to show na, they have nice graphics showing the different kinds of food groups that you should be eating during your fasting. If you do intermittent fasting, I think this is a visualization for intermittent fasting. But then your charts are mislabeled. Your elements are mislabeled. So that's correct. Just because tama technically yung figures that you have on screen, it doesn't mean na tama din yung pagka-visualize mo sa kanya. All right, so the next visualizations I'm going to show are actually stuff that I think are creative or examples of thinking a little bit out of the box, while at the same time maintaining yung principles of data analytics and data visualization. So this is a bar graph of the lifespan of batteries. I enjoy this particularly because it shows batteries, and the batteries themselves are the bar graphs showing the lifespan with the y-axis pertaining to the hours each of these batteries last. So, again, problema ko lang sa kanya is it doesn't have a label for its x-axis, but this is an example of good visualization for me because it's not cluttered, but it was able to present the data in a creative manner. Tama yung scale, tama yung labeling ng axis, but only for the y-axis. It doesn't have an x-axis description. The title is a bit long, but it tells you immediately what this chart is about. So yeah, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I think that's a good example. And then this one, the map on the image on your left is a map of the density of population density of Metro Manila. So I'm using this as an example because I am a resident of Metro Manila at the moment. So yeah, it's to show na your data can also be viewed in a um, spatial manner. Na you could see population density in a chart, you could see numbers, but if you present it in a map format, it's easier to visualize and see, okay, this specific city in Metro Manila is the most dense. These are a little bit less populated areas. So, yan. Actually, I think the map of Metro Manila, the shape file for Metro Manila looks like a fried chicken drumstick. It's kind of related to the map on the right. This is a distribution of the convenience stores in Metro Manila. So, pinapakita dito yung distribution ng mga mini stop versus 7-Eleven. So, the blue ones are mini stop, the red ones are 7-Eleven. So, yan. It's a way for you to visualize. Okay, sige. Dito pala sa middle part of the map, there's a concentration of mini stops and 7-Elevens, and then it makes you think, bakit kaya maraming 7-Elevens doon? Bakit kaya maraming convenience stores? Is it because it's a business district? Is it because maraming mga buildings doon? Ano kaya yung mga establishments na doon? So yun, a good data visualization is able to not just present to you the information, but also able to make you come up with questions for you to be able to um, extract more information from it. So yeah, that's it for the data visualization part. Would it be all right if I pause for like 30 seconds just to drink water? Is it okay, guys? Sure. Okay, sige. Thank you. Okay, I'm back. Hello. This is may questions po ba tayo sa data visualization before we move on to the next part? Wala so far. Okay. So you have to understand that sa mundo ng data science kasi maraming roles. You have analysts, you have data engineers, you have um, people who are in charge of visualization. I personally do not do the number crunching, although I've done it occasionally. I am viewing this in the lens of communicating the data. So if I think, as somebody who doesn't really crunch the data, if I think it's understandable, then there's a chance that it is also understandable for other people who are not in the technical field per se. Right. The next portion is from a visual communication point of view. So visual communication, it's a field. It actually is it's a course. It's a degree program in UP Diliman. There's a bachelor of fine arts, major in visual communication. So everything that you see, every form of presenting information that is seen visually, that is visual communication. So these are just some pointers in order for you to communicate things in a visual manner more effectively. So the first one, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you think it looks good, it doesn't mean that you should portray your information as such. It is connected to the next part. Be purposeful with your elements. So just because you could put many elements on your graphs or on your posters, it doesn't mean you should. For example, in my slide right now, what's the purpose of that smiley at the end of the sentence? Just because I might have a purpose for that, which is to make it seem more friendly, but it doesn't really have a meaning. Kumbaga, in this entire slide right now, the left part is an element na showing you an actual person doing some art on a Photoshop like software. That has a purpose, and that is to set a scene for this for this slide. The text has a purpose. So maraming maraming nagkakamali na they clutter their visuals too much with many elements. Like gusto nilang lagyan ng, okay, infographic style. Tapos maglalagay sila ng, let's say, an icon of a person, an icon of a female, an icon of a male. If it doesn't really matter, you shouldn't you shouldn't put it on your slides or on your visual materials. Each element in your design needs to mean something. So don't put elements just for the sake of design. It's not, you're not making an artwork. You're making a visual aid for communicating your message. Next, mind your grids and your framing. So grids and framing in composition are good guides um, for you to be able to put your elements in place visually. So for example, in this slide, ayan, if you see on the left, naka-grid yan. There's an upper half and there's a lower half. The upper half shows you, the more it's an image of a computer screen. The lower half, it was designed na the top half shows an image of a computer screen, and then the lower half shows you the text na yun, parang logical yung placement ng mga elements mo, and it's easier to do that if you use a grid or if you use framing. Next, you organize with a hierarchy of messages. So you map it out if you can. You can use schematics. So in this case, when you have a visual, you start out with your main message. So this is the one central idea that every viewer should take note in the space that they see. Everything should be seen dito sa main na message mo. And then you follow it with your primary message. So these are messages that directly justify the main message, and they are few in number. And then next in your hierarchy is your secondary message. So these are ideas that should be communicated to the viewer, but not the viewer might not be interested in the idea. And then the last is your tertiary messages, and these are messages that are nice to communicate, but it might suffer the consequences of limited space or budget and may not be included at all in your visualization. Right. Next, color matters. Obviously, in this example, nakita natin na the word matters. The color that's being used for this specific word, masyado siyang malapit sa background. So you have to take note of that. You have to take note of contrasts. You have to take note of theories behind color. Every visual communication specialist should be familiar also with the psychology of color. Kasi may connection minsan ang color sa emotional response. It might vary from person to person, but it may mga generalizations when it comes to how certain colors make other people feel. Like blue sometimes conveys strength, and that's why corporations use them for their logos. Ano bang mga ano ba? Blue companies, Intel has a blue logo. Uh, Internet Explorer has a blue logo. Yeah. So blue conveys strength. The color red conveys passion, excitement, action, and it also increases the appetite of viewers. So if you've noticed, restaurants, specifically fast food restaurants, they have a color scheme of red. Jollibee, KFC, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Shakey's. Wow, virtually any fast food restaurant, mostly they use red and orange. And even in the designs of their restaurants themselves, the actual physical restaurants, this red color makes people hungrier. At the same time, it makes them a little bit quicker, a little bit more action oriented. And that's why mas mabilis yung turnover ng mga customers nila. Green is kind of like the opposite of red. It suggests health, peacefulness, tranquility, comfort. It soothes down people. It makes people want to slow down. So, if you design something, if you design your poster na medyo green siya, siguro it's mostly related to the environment. Orange is related to red kanina. It's a happy, friendly color. So it's used in company websites, mga designs to attract attention, but not as urgent siguro or not as action-packed as the color red. So yun, color matters. And at the same time, when when you create a visual aid, you have to remember na not everybody has a perception of color because there are people who are colorblind. So when you make your graphs, siguro avoid using the same kind of color just with different shades to portray changes. Kasi we've done that before. May gradient yung graph. Tapos, na-realize namin na hindi pala siya nababasa ng iba kasi colorblind nga sila or yung red-green colorblindedness specifically. Okay, next, typography matters. So, this is a bad example, an example of bad typography. Just because you have the selection of fonts on your PowerPoint or on your software, it doesn't mean you have to use them. You should remember to keep your text to a minimum because when you present something, when you show something visually, maiksi yung attention span ng mga tao. People are not going to read anything that is text heavy. Keep it to a minimum and you make sure that it's readable. So in this case, hindi mo siya masyadong nababasa kasi this is like the font that you use for your diplomas, diba? Your Old English. And then the other one is a very fun but not serious na font. So when you use that for your visual aids, sometimes people might not take you seriously. You also have to match your fonts to the size and the medium. So you have to remember na if print mo yung poster mo, dapat yung pag-print mo sa kanya, saktong, ano tawag nito? Hindi siya pang novel na size na kailangan sobrang lapit ng 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 page sa mata nila para mabasa siya. You also have to remember to keep yung contrast between the text and the background. So in this case, sa slide natin, the background is black, but the text is white. So that's showing contrast because you need things to be readable. And you need things to be readable quickly. Kasi nga, people have a short attention span. Next, you use your movement sparingly and you only use it for impact. In this case, this wasn't a good use of movement. Kasi, what's the point of that? And maybe it had a little bit of impact, but for your visuals, you could use your movement to indicate passage of time, siguro, to tell a story in that way. Or you could use movement to show before and after mga comparisons. But in general, if it's not in a moving medium, if it's not for videos, you use movement sparingly. And last but not least, content over style. So like what I said kanina, informative should come before beautiful. It needs to look good, but it needs to have all the content that you need. Okay, dapat na tayo matapos. And then you have to use various mediums. So yung mediums na mention ko kanina, di ba? Videos, posters, you have Facebook, social media posting, you have ano ba? GIFs, yeah, that's an example of moving photos. So you have to understand each medium and when you're going to use them for what purpose. Last but not least, from a feature writing point of view, so I understand that we've all done a lot of writing in our careers. A lot of our writing is for our scientific papers, but in the case of feature writing, it needs a different kind of attack. So the first thing that you have to remember is to have a good story and a good angle. You have to find something that you want to highlight And you work around that. So you ask yourself, is it going to be a human interest story? Is it an explainer or an instructional article? Is it going to be a narrative? Am I going to do a behind the scenes expose for my research? Again, think of an angle, think of how you're going to tell your story. Kasi you know the details, you know the facts already, but you need to present it in a way that is compelling to your reader. Next, don't overuse your figures and your charts. This is the medium of writing. Um, I understand that figures and charts are important in also telling a story, but if you overuse it, it kind of gets cluttered, it gets chaotic. Instead, what you can do is provide compelling illustrations. It could be your graphs, it could be a photo of the actual product, the product that you use, or a photo of the researchers at work. It could be anything, but it needs to mean something and it needs to be able to tell the story, help tell the story, and not be, you know, an appendage to your article. Next, you have to have a good hook for your intro. You need to catch your reader first sentence pa lang. I will be showing you an example later of what a good what I think is a good example of a feature article for a research. After you have an intro, after you've hooked your audience, you expand on your lead. These are your second, third paragraphs that support your lead. You follow your outline. I personally find that having an outline makes me work more efficiently when I try to write some features. Because some people just write what they think and then rearrange it later. But sometimes when you have an outline, it cuts down your time. Kasi alam mo na that, okay, from the first part you want to show this, the second part you want to explain this, and then the last part you want to have a call to action, for example. Next, you show, you don't tell. You have to give them a narrative in your head. You have to make your readers imagine and visualize something in their heads and not just tell straight facts. I said, this isn't news. This isn't a scientific paper. This is a feature, and this is storytelling. Next, you end with a compelling conclusion. You could ask a question. You could have a call to action and tell people to do something. You could end it with a joke, maybe, but you know that kind of draws attention away from the main message. You have to remember that your conclusion, whatever attack you might have, should always support the message of your story. Next, let your article rest and then revise. This is a problem with all writers. Nakakapagod talaga minsan tingnan yung sarili mong sulat. It's better to leave it overnight, hindi mo siya gagalawin, and then look at it with fresh eyes the next day. Sometimes, to an extreme, some people actually use the technique write drunk, edit sober. So maybe that could work for you. I don't think it works for me. I think magulo siya na method for me. But for some people, it actually works. Writing drunk, editing sober. But the point of this is when you're writing something, you oversaturate yourself with your own work. So it's good to let your output rest for a while before you get back to it and revise it accordingly. Next, have a catchy headline. Some people actually start with a headline when they're writing a feature. I, for one, don't do that. I usually wait until the whole thing is finished and I figure out kung, from this entire story, how do I have a few words that capture the 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 message or the essence of my message. And last but not least, as researchers, this is very difficult to do, but let go of your research a little bit. You should learn how to trust your audience. Like I said a while ago, your audience is smart. They're reading your stuff because they already want to learn something from you. And it's a bit scary to think that this is your life's work. You present this to a third party point of view, and then you don't want it to be misrepresented by the reader. But if you trust your audience, you build that trust between the communicator and the audience, you'll be able to have a good rapport which makes for a better flow of communication. Ayan. Would you guys want to have an example of, yes po, Miss Jennifer Levino, I'm so sorry. I didn't see your message a while ago. Ano po yung question nila? Were you able to record it?
I'm Miss Jo. I was just
Yes, ma'am.
wondering a while ago, while you were discussing kasi yung from the data science point of view,
Yes, ma'am.
I just remembered something kasi while I was trying to create my graphs. So it might be helpful kasi po. I was trying to compare two values. I was looking at the trend. So
Yes.
basically I made use of a line graph comparing two values, but the problem that I see is that medyo malaki po yung yung difference in terms of the values. So the resulting graph was that one series medyo too small na siya to be visible, whereas the other series naman, in short, malaki po lang yung niya, yung difference. So how would you suggest would be a better way of presenting it? Ba would it be the two series in one go or in one graph, or separately na lang sila ipe-present?
Okay. That's a good question. Have you tried looking at the scales of your graphs? Kasi
Yes po.
minsan, yung intervals mo, kapag pinaliit mo siya ng konti, nag-iiba yung kwento from a glance. But have you also tried that?
Yes, ma'am.
Iniba mo ba yung scale?
Yes, Miss Jo, opo. Pero hindi siya masyado nag-help kasi like specifically like COVID cases, like positive and negative case. So in a day, malayo talaga yung difference when it comes to the tested cases. So let's say for daily positive, let's say 2 only yung naging positive, whereas 30 yung negative. So medyo malayo. So all throughout the series, definitely maliit talaga yung sa positive. So I wanted sana to tell a story on yung difference between yung positive and negative, kasi parang baka there's a better way of presenting it.
Yeah. Minsan kapag ganyan, sometimes you have to wait for more data points for it to tell
Yes,
a more
actually,
coherent
opo.
story.
Oo.
Kapag ganun kasi, it's comparing like a few days worth of data, diba? Minsan din, scale. Scale could be the answer to that. Na kapag liitan mo yung scale, it's going to tell a different story as compared to kung lalakihan mo yung scale, medyo magkaparehas lang siguro yung trend ng 2 versus 30. So, yun, if you want to tell a story na a drastic change between days, pwede mong lakihan yung scale mo to show na from 2, ang laki ng jump to the next day. But sometimes, yun nga, a few data points might not be able to tell like a better story, a complete story. So, my suggestion would be, siguro, wait for more data points to happen, which is unfortunate kasi nga, per day, we don't want more cases of infections. But yun,
Yes.
to tell a more coherent story or to tell a more complete story, maybe more data points would be better for that.
Yes po.
But to add to that, it might be very tempting to try to torture your data to tell a story, and you could do that. You could tweak it a little bit just so it shows a better representation of what you're trying to present. But always remember that your data should not be misrepresented. Kasi sobrang dali mag-torture ng data to misrepresent a fact. Don't fit the data to your narrative. Make sure that the narrative is explaining the data. Ayan. Was I able to answer your question?
Yes, Miss. Opo. Thank you. Thank you so much po.
Do you have other questions po sa data science, visual communication? Pwede din siguro, ma'am, na i-plot as cumulative for positive and negative suggestion. Yes, actually, summation. Cumulative na figures for each day ng positive and negative. And Sir Brahas has made an excellent point. Do we have any more questions po? If we don't have questions, I would like to show you an example of what I think is a good example of a short feature article about a certain research from the United States. Its title is "Artificial Skin May someday give you a spider sense. So I'd like to ask first if can everybody read what's on the screen? It's an article from flipscience.com actually. So it's just a short um, it's just a short article. This is just 3 slides worth of the same amount of words. So, basahin na lang po natin. And while reading, kapag okay na, please tell me to move on to the next slide. Pa-mention na lang po sa chat if good to go for the next page. Okay, I will be moving on to the next slide for the second part of the article. Okay, I'll be moving on to the last slide as the conclusion for this article. Ayan po. Tapos na po ba tayong lahat basahin yung article? Medyo mahirap talagang kumuha ng feedback pag webinar, no? Okay, so I will just assume that everybody is done reading the article. So this was a feature on a research by scientists from the University of Connecticut and the University of Toronto for an artificial sensor that mimics the skin's ability to detect signals from pressure. So essentially, it's artificial skin. And the what I like about this article is one, it's actually very short. It's a 2-minute read. Kung diretso mo siyang babasahin. Unfortunately, we were reading it via slides here. I I think the headline was very catchy because it refers to, it has a pop culture reference, a spider sense from the Spider-Man comics. Spider-Man has spider sense, which makes him feel things that aren't necessarily on his skin. It gives him, an additional kind of sense. So the words that they use are very catchy as well. Artificial skin. It sounds kind of weird, but it's the essence of what the research is about. It might not be exactly what it is, but it says what the research is, the product is in 2 words. So it's artificial skin. It was able to answer who made the researchers, for whom this research was for. It says that it's for burn victims, amputees, and people who have lost their skin sensitivity. So that also answers the so what question. Para saan ginagawa tong research na to? It's for the people who don't have feeling anymore with their skin because of burns or traumas or amputations. Also, it's good that this article is able to show yung segmentation and the hierarchy of ideas. So the first part was telling you what the research is about and who it's for and who it's made by, and then the second paragraph tells you, how they were able to do it. They were able to show the science behind this research in just a few sentences. I think there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, eight sentences to describe the science behind it. And 8 sentences, I know for a fact, that's like a small portion for, mga scientific articles natin showing our research, diba? So this article is able to like condense it properly without sacrificing the accuracy of the research. And then the last portion of this article was able to show or answer some of the questions that some readers might have while they're browsing through this. So, what about people who have normal levels of skin sensitivity? So, it's able to give you a hypothetical scenario for future uses of this specific research. And it was able to insert some humor, some pop culture references. May joke pa nga siya dito that putting the FE in feeling, wherein FE um, is representative of iron. So yeah, that's an example of what I think is a concise, short feature article about a certain research. You could view this on flipscience.ph. That is a Filipino science website that tells stories about the current research in the Philippines and also around the world. So actually, that is where my presentation ends. Do we have any questions from the audience? And the first part was all about, the basics, the models of communication that people should always remember, and then the second half was all about tips from different points of view on how to communicate better. So may I ask for comments or questions from each participant? Sir Nico? Miss Lani? Uh, Sir PJ? Sir John
I'm
Raymond?
good, madam.
Ayan, Sir PJ. Yes, hi. Good na?
Okay naman po, madam. Okay naman po.
Wala pa tayong mga tanong.
Hello?
Hi, sir. Yay, gumagana na po
Yun.
yung microphone nila. Finally.
Ask ko lang po siguro yung about color. Kasi
Yes, sir.
usually, di ba graphs, pag sa color, medyo mahina po kasi ako doon eh. Pagdating sa kulay, ano ba yung usual pong palettes ang ginagamit for, for mas appealing na na graphs?
Magandang palettes for appealing graphs. Interesting. I'd approach that with a few questions first. Una, saan niyo po to ipipresent? Anong medium niyo po ba ipipresent to?
I was planning kasi na isama po sa feature article eh.
Sa feature article. Okay. So, if it's for the feature article, what data is this going to present po ba? What's your research all about?
It's about the LGUs and the resiliency of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, medyo marami kasing tawag dyan, maraming lines. Actually, parang line graph siya, pero with many, parang top 10 LGUs, parang ganon. So, medyo na ano lang ako sa kulay kasi pag graph ko siya sa Excel, rainbow color yung lumalabas.
Magulo siya. Yeah.
Opo.
So how, if you're asking for a color palette ng graphs of like 10 things that you're comparing to each other, it's actually okay to use 10 different colors. Well, para to show na discrete itong elements na to. And with regards to the palette, you could always go for something muted, like pastel colors, maybe. That's, if I may, yan po yung uso ngayon sa kapag nagre-present ng information as opposed to like more neon types of palettes. But it's okay to represent that kind of data with 10 different colors or even 5 different colors. Lalo na kapag yung kunwari mga LG na magkakatabi, pwede mo silang i-group into a specific color. Just make sure that these colors the hues within that same color are distinct from each other. Kasi mahirapan po siyang basahin kapag masyadong maliit, tapos masyadong magkalapit na. This is a darker red and this is a lighter red. Tapos masyadong maliit yung graph nila. So that could be one. That could be, kunwari, dalawang magkatabi na LGU siguro. It's one color but vastly different hues. Magkakaproblema ka usually though sa ganyan kapag gawin mo lang consideration po siguro sir yung color-blinded individuals of your audience kasi hindi na-distinguish ang certain shades of certain colors kapag ginagamit mo siya in a graph. So yan, it's okay to experiment with colors. Try to go for the more muted tones, but try to consider as well kung magkalapit ba or magkalayo yung shades ng certain color na yan.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if I was able to answer your question.
Yeah. So basically po ma'am, muted is the suggested one.
Not necessarily more muted than neon colors. Kapag ipiprint mo kasi siya, kapag on paper, it's better na yung contrast niya kasi sa puti, di ba? Pero it still needs to be on the more muted side of or a more calmer, what's the right word for it? Ayun, medyo mas muted.
Okay.
consider nyo rin yung yung medium na gagamitin nila. Kung sa papel, puti, di something na magsa-stand out sa white, but at the same time, something na hindi masakit sa mata. Si Miss Jennifer po, do you still have any more questions?
No more po, ma'am.
Okay, thank you po.
Very
Sir
helpful
PJ,
input.
you're welcome po.
Thank you.
Si Ma'am Lani, naputol po kayo kanina. Actually, may parts po yata ng webinar na wala po sila. I welcome all kinds of questions, please. You might even, pwede din kayo magtanong about like personal experiences in communication. Ano yung mahirap gawin? Experiences in presenting to stakeholders, probably. I mean, if you're interested in that. Pero if hindi, okay lang din naman. Napunta na. Ms. Frey, would you like to intervene? Maybe nahihiya lang po sila, or
Ayun.
there may be a better way of facilitating these questions.
Yes. Actually, okay lang ba? Magbibigay lang ako ng konting announcements. So, before, we will forward the final draft of the papers pala. Kasi ngayon yung isang deadline, so we will forward the final drafts of the papers tomorrow to Hivos and reviewers. We will do our best to send it back by tomorrow afternoon or sa 15th for final revisions. And then we will try our best to push through with the public presentation kasi magpe-present sila on the 17th with government stakeholders. Or if hindi talaga kaya, isa sa kino-consider namin is i-push na lang natin sa 20th para mas mahaba yung time to prepare and also to coordinate with the guests. Pero the learning staff will coordinate na lang with you guys on the specific yung deadlines. So baka after nito, mag-send sila ng email. What else? So, ayun po. Kung may question kayo, kasi Miss Jo, baka dinadigest pa nila. Kasi ako rin eh. So, would it be possible, would it be okay sa'yo if ever, if halimbawa, meron silang questions and then email na lang and then email namin sa'yo and then maybe if it's okay, you can answer them. Okay lang ba? Or give your opinion siguro.
Sure, my email address is on screen right now. I have my work in the not DOST related email address called that's joe.briones@asti.dost.gov.ph. In my Gmail, I also put the email the websites pala of DOST ASTI. So maybe if you guys want to collaborate on something na yung ASTI kasi more on ICT and microelectronics, and currently we're also doing a lot of space technology research. So if it's something that you would want to pursue, if you think may enhance your research with space data, satellite images, data analytics, we also have that. But this is mostly for geospatial mapping yung ginagawa namin ngayon. Or ICT electronics, like mga sensors, you could contact us. Andyan po yung mga email addresses ko and yung social media and yung website ng aming project and the agency, the DOST ASTI. I wouldn't mind asking you guys asking questions. I understand medyo limited din kasi yung webinar na format. So medyo challenging yung exchange of ideas and yung paghingi ng feedback on the spot. So it's okay. I would appreciate it if you guys send me questions later. Pwede niyo ring i-collate everything, and I could comment. I could comment on their work. I could give a little bit more pointers if they have something more specific to target. Ayan.
Okay. So, ayan. All right. So thank you very much. Ako na lang yung magko-close. Thank you very much to our participants. So super thank you for attending and for kahit challenging yung interactions natin pag online, 'di ba? Instead kesa sa face to face. So thank you so much pa rin for being active. And of course to our speaker, Miss Jo, thank you so much for being with us today. And I hope that this webinar session has been helpful. I'm sure it is. Again, we will be posting the recording online. So in our social media pages, website, the e-learning portal, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. So lahat yon ipopost namin ito once na makuha na namin. And then the learning staff will email it to everyone yung mga links, including po kay Miss Jo. Lahat ng materials. So there, thank you so much. And if you have more questions after this, comments, suggestions, please reach out to us via email, learning@layertechlab.com, or social media. You can PM us on Facebook. We have a support team na nagmaman nun. And please don't forget to follow our social media pages yun nga, for updates, opportunities, and other e-learning materials. And if may interested kayo collaborations or anything na nire-release namin doon. So, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you po. Bye-bye.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the active participation galing sa audience po natin today. This was rather difficult, I would admit, pero I'm very glad that we were still able to, have an exchange of ideas, and kahit na medyo awkward na, parang wala akong kausap.
Normal.
Yes, this is the new normal. Thank you very much, and
Thank
maybe
you
I
po.
might see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Paalam.
Thank you po.